Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Grief. Let's Talk About It podcast. You guys know who it is. This is Tony Lynch. I'm the host of this podcast. And yes, we are your number one podcast for bringing you stories around death, down, and grief and all the messiness that comes in between with some amazing people out here changing people's lives one heartbeat at a time. Now, this is a live stream, so if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comment section. We'll be sure to answer them as we go. Now, before I bring on my guests, I would like to say one other thing, that this is for educational purposes only. Now, without further ado, guys, help me welcome my next guest, Holley. Holley, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing good, Tony. Thank you so much for um, inviting me onto your podcast and sharing my story with your viewers because it's an honor.
Yeah,
Um,
most definitely.
After talking to you, it's an honor, and I appreciate
I'm
it.
definitely, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be able to share your story with the audience, but getting the chance to get to know a little bit more about you, I'm really excited for this. I'm really excited. So,
Me
you know,
too.
before before we get started, introduce yourself to the audience. Tell people who you are, where you're from, about the work that you do.
Sure. Hey, everybody. I am Holley Broughton. I am originally from Dallas, Texas, born and raised. So I'm a Texas girl. I'm a simple Texas mom. Uh, I have been here most of my life, but I also have moved around the East Coast with my job. Um, I have been in recovery for 18 years from alcohol and addiction, have been very active in that. Um, had a great childhood, um, growing up. And you know, my recovery though has been kind of backwards. Um, and right now, I am have been working a lot on myself, but I have moved to I'm an RSPS and an MHPS right now, which means I'm a recovery peer support specialist and a mental health peer support specialist. So I'm dual diagnosed, so that means I have mental health stuff going on too, and that's okay. It doesn't define who I am. It's just stuff that I work with, that I work through. So, and then of course there's the stuff that you and I talked about, which we'll probably get to. So,
Yeah, most definitely. And let's go through your journey. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how you got to where you are, right? Because I think as the audience, would be interested in, because I know there's a lot of people out there maybe struggling with addiction and mental health issues, right? And
sure,
so, let's talk about your journey. Let's talk about that. How did you start
okay,
off?
sure. So, number one, I like I said, I was born in a great family. My parents were married up until the day my dad passed away,
Mhm.
and I they gave him they I had all the love in the world. Um, I my dad's mother was involved in my life. Um, you know, and she was a model back in the 30s, and uh, she was set in her ways, and you know, she her favorite word was must. And growing up, I was a fat kid, and she was always like, Holly, you must lose weight and must take care of your skin and all this kind of stuff. And so that made me, and I had all of the isms that the program that I'm in that we talk about. And so that made me grow up to be a people pleaser. And I am also, I'm going to point this out too. I don't know if a lot of people are familiar with being an empath and what's called an HSP, but it's a highly sensitive person.
Yeah.
But I've always been very empathic and very, I'm intuitive. I pick up on people's feelings. I absorb people's feelings. I've always been very emotional.
Mhm.
And so it's been very problematic for me. And so anyway, so growing up, I always wanted to please my grandmother, always wanted to please my parents. They were very strict. I'm Gen X, whatever. So I was latchkey kid, whatever. Uh, so, and so when I eventually did lose a lot of weight, my grandmother was like, "Oh my God, Holly, you must gain weight." And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm never gonna please, I'm never gonna please this woman." And just to give you some background, she was addicted to laxatives, diuretics, um, amphetamines, and plastic surgery. So she had her first facelift at 30 and her last boob job at 80. So that'll kind of give you an idea of what, and plenty in between. So that'll give you an idea of, what I was dealing with. And
Wow.
so I started drinking probably at the age of 14, and that was just peer pressure, like most of us start out with.
Mhm.
Um, so, and there was some stuff before that, but you know, but I didn't cross that invisible line. I don't remember my 30s because that's when it started progressing, and I didn't get sober until I was 38. And and I'm grateful. Uh, and when I say that, I was drinking until I passed out, blacked out, you know. And so, uh, and so I got sober October 25th of 2006. Um, and so when I did, I was doing everything that I was supposed to, in the program, and met this woman, and and coincidentally met her brother, and he was not in the program and was an active alcoholic, and I was 2 years sober at the time and wanted him to have what I had so badly. So I wanted to help him, and you know that doesn't work. I know that now, but it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so we eventually, I eventually got pregnant. Got pregnant at 42, had my daughter at 43, and had the love of my life, um, just precious little girl. And by the time she was 9 months old, I couldn't. He was drinking, and I couldn't do it both. I couldn't do it, and so he moved out, and I went to court just to get everything legal. Nothing more than to just get everything legal, custody and child support. That's it.
Mhm.
Didn't want to take her away from him at all. Um, and we agreed. We went to mediation and we agreed on everything. No problem. Um, Agreed on child support. I agreed with what he offered, and which was quite low. And but even at that time, I could feel or see something in his head, like not. right. Like something wasn't right.
Right.
And then he made a couple of comments, and he was, there his sister had mentioned to me a couple of times that he was narcissistic, and I didn't listen. I always like to give people the benefit of the doubt, always. Um, and so I didn't listen. And plus, there was some stuff going on with her, so I didn't listen. And anyway, as time progressed, uh, I had her during the week, and he had her every weekend. Unlike some fathers, they have her, they have their children every other weekend, but he had her every weekend. And so when she was 2, he um, we would exchange her, and a couple of times he was bringing her back drunk. So he was driving drunk with her in the car,
Mm.
and that bothered me. And then one time he didn't show up with her for the pickup, and so I texted him. He didn't answer. Uh, he I called him. He didn't answer. So I went to his residence, and uh, there were beer bottles and everything all over everywhere. The door was opened. I opened the door, and he was passed out drunk. And so I got my daughter. My daughter was completely naked, by the way, and he was passed out drunk. And I was taking pictures and all this kind of stuff. And I told him I was trying to get my daughter, and I don't think anything happened at all. I was very angry. I was taking pictures, and um, I, I told him I tried to get my daughter before he came to, but he came to before I could get her. And I told him to get her ready and get her to the car. And when he put her in her car seat, uh, all she had on was a dress. She didn't have her underwear on. And I was furious. And anyway, I took him to court. Long story short, I took him to court, and the judge didn't do anything really. I had all evidence, and he just slapped him with, told him to go get a substance abuse assessment. And um, he had also made sexual advances towards me, which I had recorded. And the judge said, you shouldn't have done that. And and then he amended our parent agreement to say that he couldn't, that neither one of us could drink around our daughter, which it didn't matter to me because I didn't even drink at all. So
Right.
I didn't care. So, um, and he proceeded to ask well, no, sorry. He went and got the substance abuse assessment and came back at another court date and lied on the substance abuse assessment and said that he hadn't drank in 5 years. And then proceeded to ask the judge, the same time he handed him the paper, asked the judge if he could please amend the parenting agreement to back to say that he couldn't drink in excess so that he could have a beer to watch the football games. And the judge said no. And I'm like thinking to myself, what is going on here? Like, does he not see? Like, anyway, so it's just stuff like that goes on in the courts. So anyway, so uh, so things went on, and she was 4. And during my sobriety, when I got sober, I was very fortunate. When I got sober, when I was drinking, I never lost anything. I was considered a high bottom drunk. I never lost anything. But when I got sober, I lost my job because it was back in 2000, it was 2006, and I lost my job in 2008 just because of the economy. I got laid off basically.
Right.
And I had that job for 16 years. And then I eventually lost my house. But I realize now why I got sober, because I handled a lot of things with grace that I wouldn't have handled had I been drinking. And I kept my house a lot longer than a lot of people during that time, just because I handled it a lot better than what some people handled it during that time.
Can I ask
But
you a question?
sure.
Yeah, because you mentioned something earlier, and being someone I'm an empath myself, right? So I'm an empath myself. I'm very sensitive around people, and it has really impacted my social life because I have a hard time being around people because I pick up on things. Now, this can be a good and a bad thing, right? You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? In so many ways, because I pick up on people's energy, and it has kept me safe from being in bad situations, right?
Oh yeah.
Like if a person is a narcissist, I pick up on them right away, only because I've been with a narcissist before. And so, it's like, when I pay attention to it and I know what that energy feels like, I just go, nope, I am going to go that way, right? But
Yeah.
also, doing the work that I do, being an empath helps me to be able to connect with people where they need me to be. So it's that
Mm-hmm.
old saying, saying meet people where they are and don't expect people to come to where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Because for one, I've gotten so far in my journey, especially the healing and understanding of grief and trauma, the mental health and things like that. I don't expect people to be up here, right? That would be unfair to people. So it allows me to connect with them and to be able to hold that space with them as well. Did you ever find yourself in situations to where it made it difficult to be around a lot of people? Because that social environment can be overwhelming at times.
Oh yeah. Oh
And,
God, yeah.
and, and,
Um,
and
Go ahead.
let's talk about that for a minute. How did it affect your social life?
So I can tell you, uh, and here's where I have, I have a lot of problems. From when in my uh, empath realm, I guess you could say. But I go to a lot of meetings, and if there are a lot of people at the meetings who are struggling, or uh, newcomers at the meetings, uh, it's very difficult for me
Yeah.
because I absorb that stuff. And what I have found, um, I didn't know it until recently, but it actually has a physical effect on me.
Hmm.
My either my blood pressure drops or my blood sugar drops, and I almost pass out. I have almost passed out. Um, so I really have to watch, like I really have to watch myself.
Yeah.
And if there's too many people, and too many people are struggling, I really have to be careful,
Yeah.
because
You
I
know,
don't want to take on their trauma, you know?
yeah. And honestly, I can relate to what you just said because, when I started, I tried to go to support groups um, after my losses, and I went
Mm,
to a few, a couple. I ain't gonna say a few. I went to a couple grief support groups, and what I found was is that when I couldn't be in there long, but I didn't understand it. I didn't understand it, like because I was in my 40s, right? But I've always
sure.
been this way, and I didn't understand why when I was around certain people. So talk about the physical effects of it. When I was around certain groups of people, when I left them, I was just completely wiped out. It
Oh
was
yeah.
like they were taking my energy, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then I realized, like, this is why I say it's been a part of my life, my whole entire life, but no one ever taught me about being an empath or grief or what I'm saying, dealing with these things, because I was always considered a battle dog. If it was something in front of me that I could fight physically, oh, I'm tearing through it, right? But it's those
Sure.
battles that I didn't understand that I had to fight on a different in a different way. And so when I would be around these individuals, I would find myself very quiet, right? I would
Mhm.
sit back and I would just go, I'm just gonna listen.
Mhm.
And I would notice that how people would get closer and closer to me, but the more and more they got closer to me, the more drained I felt. So there
Mhm.
was that, the second time I went to a group, and no offense, you know what I'm saying? This is as I was transitioning into working with men.
Mhm.
Um, when I went to the groups, there was a bunch of women. I have to say the emotions and things like that run so deep, it was just like, I can't do this. This is
Mhm.
this is suffocating. And so I had to stop. But
Mhm.
that's where actually everything made sense to me. I was like, you know what? I need to be around other men like myself. Now it's not as draining, but it still drains me. It's just like when I go do guest speaking and I'm standing up there and I'm talking with people. I tell people I'm an introvert with a small extrovert window. You can only
Yeah.
get this much out of me, right? As long as I know how much
Yeah.
time I have and things like that, I'm gonna do what I do in that little small amount of time. But after that, I got to get off. I have to. Don't ask me to sit on stage and take questions. I need to go. I need to go and do something because for me, it's like I got to go take a breather. I have to go sit down and recharge. And once I do that, I can come back in and I realize that little small window it gets even smaller. So I
Yeah.
don't find myself going to a lot of social events. I never did parties when I was a kid, even as an adult, right? But I did notice when I was drinking, and this is when I because I was an alcoholic as well.
Mhm.
When I was drinking, I was a lot more sociable. I was a lot more tolerable of people, but I think it numbed what what I'm saying. It
Yes.
numbed me, and I was able to block out other people's emotions and things like that. And it got me in a lot of trouble.
Oh, sure. Sure.
What do you think? What do you think about that? Right? Having that extroverted window.
Uh, well, here's my theory, and I think, and I could be wrong. I've been wrong plenty of times, but I think that a lot of alcoholics and addicts are probably empaths and and
Mm,
and 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 HSPs, and they don't know it. I think, and that's why they drink and use. Um, you know, uh, a lot of us come, a lot of us come from uh, pretty hard backgrounds and stuff like
yeah,
that, which contributes. But I do think a lot of us are very, very sensitive, and that makes me question that. Uh, so I that's my hypothesis on.
well, let's explore it. Let's explore it because I think you're on to something, right? Because when we think about alcoholism and being and doing drugs and things like that, the main purpose of it is for you to get out, one, to numb you,
Yep.
right? Numb you to
Yep.
what's going on around you, and two, to live in a altered reality to where you can feel safe and
Yep.
that you're able to cover up and hide your own emotions from said environment, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think that you are onto something. And what if that is the case, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if that is the case where people are doing that to numb because they are highly sensitive to people, right?
Mm-hmm.
But not truly understand the depthness of the emotions that they feel.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a great hypothesis, though. I love that.
Yeah, because I know uh, I, for me, I feel things like, I mean, I don't know if you remember when we were talking prior to this, um, when we were talking earlier, last week, but, you know, when you were talking about your son and I, I don't know if you remember, but I was saying, oh my God, I see his face. I haven't even met him and I see his face. That's how I am. Like I feel, I feel that deeply. Like I can't explain it. So I hurt, like I hurt, uh, like that.
Yeah.
And the pain is like that.
But
Um,
I can't
so,
I can't say too much about the pain, but I feel the emotions. Like I had an incident one time where a friend of mine, she had been lonely. She had been very, very lonely, and it was killing her.
mhm,
I mean, it was driving her nuts and things like that. And she went on a rant, but I felt her emotions so deeply, and it was so suffocating because we were actually at a barbecue at a friend of mine's house, and I remember walking into the room, and I became overwhelmed. Now, I'm not a very emotional person. I'm not,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
Um, but I do because I am very emotionally aware.
mhm,
I can sit with my emotions and allow myself to feel what I need to feel in order to process and learn from it, right?
mhm,
But this was such a deep sorrow for me, and when I went in there, I was just like, wow. I'm talking with her, and all of a sudden, the tears started coming, and she just kind of looked at me. I was like, "Sweetie, you have to heal. You
yeah.
do." I said because carrying that around with you um, is exhausting. I'm exhausted just being here talking with you, and it's not a bad thing, but I feel your loneliness.
Mhm,
And by the person that you are, I understand why you feel that loneliness because you crave companionship,
mhm,
but you keep making all the wrong decisions.
mhm,
And so therefore you keep getting the same things. I said,
mhm,
so please do me a favor. Heal from this because this is deep, this is heavy. And most people that go along this path don't come back,
mhm,
right? And
mhm,
she just kind of looked at me. 2 days later, she came back and she was like, I don't know how you did it, but like, how did you know what I was feeling? I said, I don't know because feel I feel these things and I feel very deeply. You
mhm,
know, another incident, I was with a guy and for some odd reason I kept being drawn towards him and he kept being drawn towards me. And when he got closer to me, I just felt this overwhelming feeling of just grief.
mhm.
And it's familiar to me. And when I felt it, I was going, okay, let me just sit in this moment with you for a minute. Right? I didn't tell him that, but I knew what he was doing. So what I'm saying?
Mhm.
When you're empathetic, you kind of like can determine other people's moves before they even make them, which I find it
Mhm.
very fascinating because you can't say anything because you don't want to change their mind about what they're about to do, but you're curious enough to see if they're going to do it,
Mhm.
right? And then you're
Mhm.
just like, I know what's about to happen. Do you think? And then when they do it, you're just like, because
Yep.
because I do that, right? I do that because of the simple fact of there's sometimes, Holly, there's sometimes where I need to shut out the world, right? I
Oh
just
yeah.
need to
Sure.
I need to do my own thing, right? Which now is not a bad thing because what I realized what I needed to do to shut out the world was lifting weights. Right? I love lifting weights. That's why I got back into bodybuilding and everything else, right? Because it's my therapy.
Yep.
But I tell you what, Holly, people sometimes need that when they see the headphones on my head, not to come over and talk to me. I'm not trying. I'm not
Yep.
trying to talk to them. But do you ever find yourself in situations like that where you got your headphones in and you're just like minding your own business, and you just know that somebody's about to come and disrupt that song that you got going on?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that girl, have you ever just wanted to throw punch them real quick? Just like, take that.
Well, and let me tell you something. I had my psychiatrist suggested that I get a emotional support animal after all of this because I'm still working through my trauma, but which we haven't gotten to the stuff, but she suggested that I get an emotional support animal. So at first I was going to get a dog because I'm really a dog person, but uh, my landlord uh, it didn't work out that way. But anyway, so I ended up getting a cat. And let me tell you something. This cat is, you know, she is she apparently God put her in my life for a reason because she knows exactly what I'm supposed to have because at the end of the day, I'll be in bed and I'll be on my phone, scrolling through whatever, and she will get in between my face and the phone, and I'll be like, excuse me, like, and if I pay attention to what she's doing, she's actually telling me, hey, dude, you need to get off the phone.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, but and like what's more important, like, and so I really need to there's times that I really need to pay attention, but there's also times that I do need to do that, like I do need to like decompress and have my music on, like I need to, for me it's music, like I need to like have my music on because that's where I lose myself, my that stuff, like the whatever, the empaths, the the
Yeah,
absorbing stuff.
you can kind of let it kind of lay low for a little bit, right? Kind of mellow itself out, and I wanted look. I tried having emotional support animals, but every time I get one, they always pick fights with me. It does look,
She
every
tries
dog,
to. She
right?
tries to.
Well, I had a Great Dane one time, right? This
Oh.
Great Dane used to get up in my face, and she was a big dog. She used to get up in my face when I be trying to do something or sitting down or something, and she just look at me, and I go, "Don't you come with your stuff right now?" And she would take her paw and just smack me, and so then I have to smack her back. And then now we're sitting there fighting each other, right? And then now we're on the floor rolling around. She's kicking me with all her paws. I'm giving her elbows and everything else, it's just it was bad, Holly. It was so bad. Like my emotional support animal needs other emotional support animals. They got issues, okay? So I was like, you know what? I ain't dealing with your stuff no more. I am not dealing. And then she get an attitude with me and go sit in the corner and give me the little side eye, like, I'll be back. I'll be like, don't you start your stuff with me. Don't you start, right? But she was the coolest dog, right? She was the coolest dog. I loved her to death. Then I had a pit bull, right? Same thing. Same thing. I would put the dog in the backyard in the fence or something like that. And the dog would jump the fence and come and tackle me. Now me and the dog got to fight in the middle of the yard, and people are looking at us like, is he really fighting the dog? We're like, did you not see what the dog did? Right? And we're like, y'all got these animals have issues. I don't know what the problem is. Okay. And you know, you would think that they were just little humans. That's what you would
Oh
think.
yeah.
Yeah, you think that because they be arguing with you. I got an argument. Girl, look, I got in an argument with the baby. Yeah, yeah. The baby picked an argument with me. People are always like, Tony, how is it that you arguing with the baby? I was like, did you not hear what the baby said? The baby was a nah, nah, nah. I was like, oh, don't you dare start your stuff. Right? I know you're not hungry. I know you're not wet. And these are all my friends' kids. So you think I could just give them back? Right? They were like,
Right.
Tony, you hold the baby. I was like, yeah, hold the baby. The baby be smiling. As soon as the parents disappear, oh, me and the baby locked eyes, and now we're arguing. Now we're arguing. Because now we got issues, right? You'll try to tell me how to live my life. I'm like, you can't even walk. How you gonna what? Right? And then the parents are like, I'm like, look, you can take your kid. They were like, you did that. I'm like, but this is your kid, not mine. Right? So Holly, I find myself in situations like this all the time. I don't know why, right? But I'm starting to think it's me and not them.
Yeah. Yeah. And but what I've found is with her, I, I really have to I have to like listen to what she's saying in her own way because like she will start she starts her stuff at like 5 o'clock in the morning. But what I've realized, yeah, you know, and I really want to, she's going to be roadkill at like 5 o'clock in the morning when she starts that crap. But, you know, but what I've realized is, you know, my alarm is set at 5 o'clock in the morning because that's the time that I've always gotten up.
Mhm.
Now I don't get up at that time anymore, but my alarm still goes off. And so she's gotten used to that alarm going off. And so to her, she's like, oh, okay, time to get up and I'm ready to be fed, you know. And so she's up and she's doing her thing and you know, and I'm thinking, well, I guess that's not really her fault. Um, and you know, it's driving me crazy, but I mean, it's not really her fault. She's triggered because of my my my
Yeah.
alarm. So that's on me. So you know, I kind of have to take responsibility for that, you know. So and she's, you know, I really don't have. You just have to kind of figure out where all that stuff's coming from, and really, a lot of the stuff that she does is for my own benefit. Really,
Right.
I've noticed she really is an ESA. She really is an emotional support animal for me, and I, I've been amazed actually. Uh, so, and I'm very grateful.
Now,
So,
I got a question because
yeah.
talking about animals, there was a study done on horses
Oh
what
yeah.
that were in equine that they use for equine therapy.
Yep.
This has been now I could be wrong, so you can fact check me if I want, if you want. But they said that animals are very in tune with other people's vibrations and frequencies and things like that. And in turn, we as human beings attract certain animals, right?
Mhm.
And what I mean by that, so there was there was there was a there's a lady that owns an equine therapy ranch, And what they do, which I found it very fascinating, her hands would bring out maybe about 6 to 10 horses.
Mhm.
And she tells the person, go out and walk to the middle of the field, right? And to the middle of this corral. And they would let the horses go. And what they found is that every horse was in tune to a different frequency of that individual. And so the one that was the most sensitive, the horse would walk over there to them and begin to comfort them. Now, I see that with other animals as well, right? Cats
Mhm.
and dogs and, other animals, even in the wild, right?
Mhm.
Deer and, elk and, things like that. Animals would just be attracted to you in a certain way and would come over, mean no harm to you, but would
Mhm.
come over. But we as human beings, if it's an animal that we're not familiar with, we have a tendency of running from them. And I think
Mhm.
this is nature's way of sending us what we need if we
Mhm.
pay attention to it, right? And now I could be wrong, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I've I have grown up around horses uh, pretty much most of my life, and what I've found uh, around my experience with horses is they it's kind of interesting. It seems like for the horses I've been around, um, they take on different, depending on the horse, they seem to take on a personal part of my personality.
Okay.
Like like one horse was very calm. Another horse, his name was Curly. he was his name was Curly. He was the most hilarious horse that I've ever been around. I mean, he was hysterical, you know. And I, when you get me going, I'm hysterical too. But he was the most hysterical horse. I wish I could. I wanted that horse so badly. I wanted him so bad. But and then there's horses that are just obstinate. They're just like I don't know. But I mean, they're just it's like, but it seems like uh and then there's horses that are disciplined. They're very disciplined. And then there are horses that are, kind of mopey. I don't know. Um, so I don't know. I find them very interesting, but I do find them when I'm around them, I find them very comforting.
Right.
I love horses. I've always loved being around horses and riding them, and um, some people it's not their thing, but I just find them very. I've always found them very comforting
Yeah.
for me.
Okay.
I
Now,
just I've learned a lot with them.
I want to get into the section that you were talking about your daughter's father, right?
Uh-huh.
And because he put you through the ringer. He really
Mhm.
did, right? And got you to a point to where, you was just like, you know what, this is not fair. He got the, I mean, because it's reverse, right? And everything when we talked the last time, you don't know how much I could relate to what you were saying,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
About going through the court system and having the court system just rake you along with this person, this very manipulative person, and you're finding yourself in a situation to where you're like, you know what, this is not even worth it, right? You know what I'm saying? And wanting to step away and just going, you know what, I'm just going to have to wait my time, and hopefully I can repair the damage that this individual does. because they're doing it to try to hurt you. And what I found is that most true narcissists will always try to find a way to hurt you, right?
Oh, yeah.
Even when they think that even when they know that, what I'm saying, that they've lost the fight, they will find a way to come back and go, you know what? Still got one last jab I can have at this person,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Let's talk about that experience a little bit, right? Because I know there's a lot of people out there right now that's probably tuning in that relating to what we're saying about the emotional support animals and things like that. And most of them are dealing with the narcissists and don't know how to get away from them or how to pull themselves out of the situation that they're in, right?
Oh, sure. Sure. Yep.
It's very traumatic. It can be
Oh,
very
God.
traumatic.
Yep.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about your experience.
Okay. So, uh, mine. Okay. Well, let me start out by saying it's very subtle.
Mhm.
Narcissism is very subtle. They're very charming. They're very sweet in the beginning. They're very, uh, mine was an alcoholic. So when he wasn't drinking, he was very thoughtful, very sweet, very accommodating, all that kind of stuff. Um, so I didn't notice any signs or anything like that. Um, but, but after my daughter, after my daughter was born, he got very, uh, it's very nasty, uh, comments, just nasty stuff. I mean, even making comments about my mother, just nasty stuff. Um, it kind of alluding to the fact that his family was better. I mean, it's just like for no reason. Like, I mean, why? Like, why would you say stuff like that? Like, nobody's better. Like, this, this is your kid. Like, you know what I mean? Like, anyway. So he would, so when she was 4, so I took him to court. He got away with whatever. Anyway, and my friends would be in court, and the stuff that he would get away with, they would be in court, and their jaws would be like, "Oh my God! Like, how in the world did that happen?"
All right.
And I was just like, I don't know. Uh, so when my daughter was 4, he took her to a biker bar. His sister called me the next day and said, "Holly, where's your daughter?" And I said, "Well, she's with him. Why are you asking me that?" And she said, "Oh God." And I said, "What?" I said, "What is going on?" Because it was the weekend. And
Mhm.
I said, "What is going on?" And she said, "Oh my God, he took her to this bar. He was with a friend. I had to go pick her up. Uh, I picked her up. He called me. I picked her up. I was having, and this just so happened to be the 4th of July weekend. And she was having a get together at her house. And so she picked my daughter up, brought her back to her house. Um, and she was just having a little get together at her house, and had some uh, people over. He came back to her house. Uh, uh, I don't know. Um, I don't know whether he was intoxicated or on something else. they tried to take he was like, give me my kid, and they tried to take his keys away from him, and they got his keys away from him, and he was like, give me my kid, and they ended up having to, one of the guys there had to push him up against the wall by his neck. Well, my daughter saw that and it traumatized her. And so the next morning, and she still remembers that. But the next morning, somehow he got up before everybody else and took my daughter, and took off. So they couldn't find him. Anyway, apparently he went back to his girlfriend's house at the time. It just so happened that she was kicking him out of her house, had called the sheriff's department. So I took off to go over there to get my daughter. And when I went over there, I couldn't even wake my daughter up. I didn't know if he gave her something. I didn't know. I brought her out of the house. It just so happened that the sheriff's department came, and one of the deputies came up, and I said, I can't wake my daughter up. I don't know what's going on. He said, well, let me try. And I said, he said, do you mind if I try? And I said, no. And he was shaking her, and so she finally woke up, but we realized that she was exhausted. She was absolutely exhausted. I guess he had kept her up all weekend. I don't know. So I think I took him back to court then too, and they didn't do anything. So, I mean, this was just it was just a process. I mean, I never got anywhere. Never got anywhere in the courts ever. And so anyway, so he would constantly send me text messages that were like pages long, nasty text messages that were pages long. And I would initially, I would feel like I would have to defend myself. So I would react. But I was told eventually, Holley, do not engage. Don't engage. So eventually I didn't. I wouldn't engage. It's called gray rock. So that's what I would do. I wouldn't engage. Well, then when I wouldn't engage, he would be like, you're not communicating with me. You're not communicating with me. So then I would just keep it short, because if it had to do with my daughter or our daughter, I would just keep it short. And as long as it had to do with our daughter, period, just short. Because I'm telling you right now, if there's any of your listeners that are going through this, I'm telling you, you cannot do anything right with a narcissist.
Mm-mm.
You can never do
Mm-mm.
anything right with a narcissist. So give it up right now. You will never do anything right with a narcissist. So give it up. But I would, if it had to do with my daughter, I'd just keep it short. So anyway, I pretty much raised my daughter. He would have her on the weekends. I would, she would go to work. She would go to work. She would go to school during the week. I would have her in, gymnastics or horseback riding or Girl Scouts or whatever. So when she was 6, somehow this woman came into the picture, into his life, and flew in out of nowhere. And he's always been verbally abusive to me, calling me a piece of shit mom, all this kind of stuff. While I am raising my daughter, he gets her on the weekends, and it's all Disney dad kind of thing. And then when I get her back, I would have to reel her back in, kind of thing. Okay, we got to get you back on schedule, homework, this kind of thing.
Mhm.
And if she'd start slipping on her grades, he'd be like, why aren't her grades good? What's going on with her grades? You know, and it would be my fault, you know. Not that he would help, you know, no help, because it was all playtime over there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, so anyway, this woman flew in out of nowhere. And then it was 2 against 1. So it was constantly, it was just, I can't even tell you. It was like, it started out, she was like, it was like competition. Like they were trying to like one up me all the time. I don't even know how to explain it. Like, and then when I would buy my daughter clothes, like if I would get her secondhand clothes, they were, that was terrible. If I would buy her new clothes, they weren't good enough. I would buy her like JoJo, at the time, JoJo Siwa, like little high tops. Oh my God, why did you get her those? You know, it was, nothing was good enough. Nothing. Didn't matter what it was. It wasn't good enough. My daughter was a picky eater. That was my fault too. Didn't matter what. So they both started. Um, it was. They were both on me now. So it was 2 against 1 at that point. So finally one Friday, I put my daughter on the bus and sent her off to school. Came back in the house, and I can't explain it, but it was like somebody had turned like the volume down on the stereo or something. It was like all of a sudden, like just full on depression, like I didn't belong here anymore. And so I overdosed. I took like total like a handful of pills. And Tony, I'm telling you, to this day, I'm telling you, I have no idea how how anybody found me, how anybody knew that happened, because I didn't tell anybody. My house was completely locked. And the only thing I can tell you is it was God. Because the next thing I knew, I was in ICU with a respirator tube down my throat, and I have no idea how I got there. I have no idea how anybody found out, because I didn't tell anybody. I didn't send any notes. I don't know. I do not know.
Mm.
I, it's a mystery to me.
But you know what?
So
I'm thankful that it didn't go through.
yeah.
But listen to your story. I definitely understand. So, how does one heal from that sort of abuse to get to where you are today? Because the work that you're doing with other people is truly amazing. You've turned it around. You've come from a place of just abuse, right? You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Verbally, mentally, emotionally, right?
Mhm.
And you've been put through the ringer. How does one begin the steps of seeing that and begin to heal?
Well, uh, it's a lot, because you know that snowballed into him getting full custody
Mm-hmm.
of her. And, then the girlfriend left. And now to this day, I have not been allowed to see, hug, kiss, or even speak to my daughter in the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, and for no reason other than to hurt me. And let me back up, because not just me, my mother, my sister, my brother, her cousins, my niece, my nephew, none of us can have any contact with my daughter for no reason. None of us. So, and I have never, just for the record, I have never kept her from his side of the family. Never. She's always been able to go on trips with them, always been able to have Christmas, Thanksgiving with them, her cousins, everybody. So I want to make that very clear.
Right.
And my therapist, I've done a lot of therapy. And my therapist said, Holley, it's very interesting because, there are people who have been in prison. There are people who have a lot more severe mental illness than you. There are even people who have abused and neglected their children. And they do get to see their children. They do get to touch their children. They do get to speak to their children. And you don't. There's no closure for you. And I'm like, I know. So what I have, what God and I have worked out is that, okay, so I have chosen to not play the game anymore. I'm not playing the game anymore.
Yeah.
I've chosen not to put my daughter in adult situations. I've chosen not to cause my daughter any more trauma than what she's been through already.
Mm-hmm.
I've chosen not to give whatever little money I have left to the law anymore. And I have chosen not to be emotionally hijacked anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I've chosen not to give attention to my abuser and his enablers anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I have chosen to pray for my daughter's safety and protection, and to pray that she finds her own truth. Because what I do know is that she has good memories of me. I do know that.
Mm-hmm.
Unless something else has been planted in her, unless she's been brainwashed and something else has been planted in her, which is very common in parental alienation cases. But she's going to have to reconcile that,
Right.
herself. But that's something that I've had to accept. And, I can't think, I can't think, because my head likes to go to, she's living with him. I hope to God he's not doing to her what he did to me. And I can't go there. I can't go there. you know, I just pray. I do a lot of praying, you
Yeah.
know, because his family has set me up. Um, and I've talked to a law advocate. I've talked to uh, domestic violence advocate because just so your listeners know, narcissistic abuse and emotional, verbal, and mental abuse is in fact domestic violence.
Yes.
It
Yes.
is. So, and they have told me, I'm like, I don't understand this. Like, why is his family protecting him? Like, why? And she says, Holly, I've seen it over and over and over again. The family always protects the abuser. Always.
Exactly. 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 And they do, right? They do. Very seldom, very seldom you see it on the other side. I was lucky in that aspect of it, right? You know, with my narcissist, it was her daughters that noticed it
Yeah.
and called it out, right? You know what I'm saying? And I watched it. I was just like, this ain't gonna go the way that you think it is, right?
Hmm.
Unfortunately for me, by the time anybody called it out, it was already too late,
Yeah.
right? My son was already gone.
Hmm.
Now, the blessing that came out of it throughout all that tragedy is that it reversed, because her daughters now call me their stepdad,
Hmm.
have nothing to do with her. So although she did take her jabs at me, I expected it. I actually thought it was kind of funny because I tried to tell everybody what she was going to do and no one believed me until she did it. And I was like, ta-da. They were
Hmm.
like, well, I was like, because, dude, you guys think that this is her first rodeo. It's not.
Yep.
And this is not the first time that she's done this to me. So when you're surprised that I tell you what she's going to do, but you didn't think that she was that devious, maybe you should have listened to me in the beginning, because this is where I look at you and I laugh because it doesn't bother me. I find it pretty funny.
Hmm.
They're like, well, how can you laugh when she just did this? I go, because for one, if I didn't laugh, I would be angry.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, fortunately for me, she's not worth my attention.
Hmm.
You're upset because you made it personal. She's a narcissist. It's not personal, it's her reality. And no matter what you do, it's still going to be her reality. So you can either look at that and say, no matter what you do, she's not going to change. So you can accept it for what it is. Don't let it bother you and you keep moving. Because from here on out, I'm not going to be the only one that she's going to take jabs at. You're the one that she's going to take jabs at. And when she takes jabs at you, I really hope that you have the mental capacity not to take it home with you and begin to take it out on your family because you're upset at what this person does.
Hmm.
I'm right there with you, Holly. Sometimes you just gotta let it go, because the family members that they learn it from are normally the ones that protect them because
Hmm.
they don't see anything wrong with their behavior because it's a normal thing. It really honestly is. And as sad as it may be, there's nothing that you can do about it.
Well, one thing too that I realized was a lot of the shit that he was throwing at me, like when he would call me a piece of shit mom and all that kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
that was his shit that he was
Uh-huh.
throwing on me. He
Mm-hmm.
was the piece of shit dad, and he was
Yeah.
throwing that shit on me. He was calling. That was him, not me. But he was deflecting his shit on me.
Because that's what they're supposed to do.
That's right. And what I wanted to point out too, which I forgot to mention earlier, was we as empaths unfortunately attract narcissists.
Yes.
Because we're so caring.
Yes.
And open, and they're not. Well, actually, that's not true. They need the caring because they're all about that. They want that because that's, it's all about them. You know what I mean?
The people pleaser. It's the
Yeah.
people pleaser, right? So
Yeah.
again, it's like a target. It's like a beacon. Soon as they can, because they will watch you, right?
Sure.
And they will watch what you do. And of course, male or female, I've seen them both.
Oh, yeah.
Hell, I had friends that I had to cut off because I called them on their crap. I was like, dude, you do realize what you just done is not right. They go, what do you mean? I was like, well, one, because it's very manipulative. Two, you gaslighted that individual. And I hate to say it. I said, but you are a narcissist. Oh, what do you? Or they start smiling. I'm like, no, it's not funny. It's not funny because the damage that you're going to do, that you just done, you're not going to take accountability for it. And in order to be around me, I'm going to hold you accountable, and you're not going to like it because I'm going to make you upset. I'm really going to make you mad. And they go, well, like, no, look at you. Again, having an emotional reaction to something that you've just done, and you're mad because I called you out on it. Yeah. So what I'm going to do before I really take this to a different place, I think it's better that you and I don't hang around. They go, oh, well, you just going to walk? Yeah, I am. For my own mental stability and for my own heart health. Because I considered you as a friend, but I've also kept up boundaries because there was always something about you. And it took me a little bit to figure it out, but now I know. I'm not going to put myself in a situation to where I end up on the short end of the stick and you just walk away unscathed. This way, you're not going to walk away unscathed because the best thing that I can do for you is to cut you loose.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, unfortunately, because of the narcissistic abuse, I have never been in jail before in my entire life. But when all this started, I have been in jail 7 times, all to get my daughter for criminal trespass 7 times. And I've never been in a mental institution in my entire life. And I've been in 21 mental institutions. So all of this started when, let's say, 7 years ago, 6 years ago, when all this started. So this is what narcissistic abuse does, and all happened in sobriety. All happened in sobriety. So it's also a testament that you don't have to drink or use when all this shit goes on. You don't have to drink or use either. So just saying.
Sad part about it. That's the sad part about it is, Holley, is that you don't have to. There's no rhyme or reason to it. With that being said, because I have to jump off here in a few more minutes, I got another meeting I got to be in. But we definitely have to do this. I would love to do this again with you.
Sure.
So I got 2 more questions for you.
Yeah.
One, how can people find you?
Well, right now, I am on Facebook. It's Holley Broughton. But I am also starting my own podcast called Sane-ish. Sane-ish. And it's really about recovery. And when I say recovery, I mean recovery unlimited, all inclusive, meaning sobriety, mental health, chronic illness, domestic violence, narcissistic abuse, incarceration, all of it.
Wow.
So grief, I mean, all of it. Because recovery is it's healing. It's we're all recovering. We're all healing.
Yes.
Trauma, PTSD. I mean, there's so many ways we recover. You know what I mean? So, and a lot of it has to do with humor, because I'm telling you, if I didn't have humor, I don't know how I would have gotten through a lot of the stuff that I would have been crying. Let's put it that way. Oh God, I would have been crying a lot more than what I,
Most
so.
definitely. Most definitely. Now, one more question for you.
Mm-hmm.
If you had a superpower, what would it be?
A superpower?
Uh-huh.
I had a superpower. I would love to you know what? I would love to be able to empower teenage girls to not let society or social media influence them in negative ways. I mean, whether it's like body image, all that stuff. Like, I want them to be able to think for themselves, like critical thinking. Like, I don't know if that's a superpower, but
it can't be empowerment, right? Empowerment.
yeah,
It
empowerment.
definitely can be a superpower for others if used in the right way.
Yes.
So one last thing before I let you go. If you could leave the audience with something, what would you leave them with?
To treat people with kindness. Please treat people with kindness, because you know what, and a lot of people are saying this today, but I'm serious. And let me tell you something. I've been homeless, but narcissistic abuse has left me homeless. But I am telling you, I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for the kindness and generosity of so many people, and I'm so grateful for them. And so, if people can just be kind, because you have no idea what somebody's going through, no matter what they look like. Just please be kind.
I love that. I love that. Well, Holley, I want to say thank you for joining me today. Thank you for sharing your story, your humor, and everything that comes along with that amazing conversation. For everyone else who have been tuning in, if this is your first time tuning in, do me a favor, head on over to the YouTube channel. Holley's information is in there. And don't forget, she does have a podcast coming out. So if you love these conversations, she's going to be bringing more to her side of the board. Okay, so go over there and check it out once it's out. but also reach out to her. You guys already know what it is. This is Tony Lynch. But also, if this is your first time tuning in, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification, hit that sound, hit that well, not hit. Subscribe to the channel for me. All right, I done got lost for words. I've done this 1,000 times, right? But most importantly, guys, if you know anyone who could benefit from the conversations that we have, please do me a favor, share it along with them. We have something for everyone, and guys, I'm going to see you guys in the next episode. Love you. And thank you for allowing me to keep bringing these conversations to you guys, man. We're gonna see you guys in the next one. Peace. Have an amazing day.